Today's meeting will include board business items and an urban entitlement update summary from staff. This meeting has been noticed in compliance with the South Carolina Freedom of Information Act. This commission acts in reviewing and recommending capacity for Charleston County's annual action plan, which guides the allocation of urban entitlement funds received from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. My name is Carter McMillan. I'm the chairman for the board. We'll start to our right, Mr. Visser, with introductions.
I'm a member of the Town Council of Sullivan's Island. I chair two committees, the Land Use and Natural Resources and Public Facilities, and happy to be here.
I'm the vice chair, the mayor of Lincolnville.
Left. On the way.
Mike Kemmer, I'm with the town of James Island, the assistant to the mayor.
Michelle Reed, Planning Director for the Town of Mount Pleasant.
Michael Allen, the legal representative.
Caroline Smith, Financial Representative.
Crystal Matthews, Mayor's Assistant for the Town of Hollywood.
Thank you all for being here today. I would like to remind you that in order to get a quality recording of this meeting for the minutes, please speak loudly and clearly into your microphones, and please do not talk over one another. The first item of board business on the agenda is to approve the minutes from last year's funding recommendation meeting held on February 28th, 2024. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Any corrections, amendments?
I move they be approved.
A
Can I get a
second.
second? Was there a second?
Second.
She beat me to it.
Second. All those in favor, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. The minutes have passed from the February 28th, 2024 meeting. Next item on the agenda is a discussion of bylaws and an ad hoc committee to be led by our board legal representative, Michael Allen. Go ahead, Michael.
I know we've talked about this in the past, and it was hoping to happen last year, but for a variety of reasons, we never got to it. So there's just as good practice every few years, we like to take a look at the bylaws, conflict of interest forms, just to make sure there's no updates, or if there are any updates, that those be accounted for, whether it's how the staff structure is done, how any responsibilities, or just any general updates with respect to the bylaws that govern this board. And so I believe that my understanding from staff is that there are some, if nothing else, administrative updates to the bylaws that need to be done to align with how the processing actually occurs nowadays. And so we need to update the bylaws accordingly. So if you're going to update them for administrative matters, might as well take a look to see if there's any other amendments or adjustments that the board would like to do. So as a legal representative, I'm happy to chair an ad hoc committee. I don't think that we need to have the entire board. Just from a planning and coordination standpoint, that's a bigger lift than I think is warranted in this situation. So my proposal would be to make a motion. I'm making a motion to form an ad hoc committee of 4 members in order to review and advise the collective board on any proposed updates that need to be made to the bylaws. And I anticipate there being 1 to 2 meetings just to review those bylaws and then make a recommendation to the board as far as what updates may be warranted. And we could certainly have a discussion on those updates with the whole board. But for efficiency standpoint, I don't think that discussion and update needs to happen with the whole board for the first draft. Let's at least get some proposal and figure out what we need to update, and then we'll go from, we can certainly have a discussion in time. So I'd make a motion to create an ad hoc committee with me running point on that committee and asking for 3 volunteers in addition to me. And if there's no volunteers, that I can select 3 members.
I'll volunteer.
I'll volunteer.
So can I get a second on that motion?
Second.
I second it.
All right, so are we approving the creation of an ad hoc committee?
You made the motion, we seconded it? Okay. And then we have how many members?
So I'll be a member, and then who else? You volunteered, Michelle. Carter, you volunteered.
Yep.
Is there somebody else who would like to participate?
I'm happy
I'll volunteer.
Okay, perfect.
Crystal Matthews, assistant to Mayor Murray.
Okay. You're Hollywood, correct?
Hollywood, South Carolina, yes.
So motion to create an ad hoc committee with Crystal, Michelle, Carter, and myself to review the bylaws and propose updates to the board sometime during the calendar year of 2025.
Okay. So,
I need a second on that. for the
I
motion.
second.
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
All righty. So, thank you to all of those. Thanks to Michael and everyone else for volunteering. Staff will coordinate with all of you separately to plan a meeting to discuss needed updates to the bylaws and to create a new draft to be reviewed by the entire board. Next item on the agenda is to sign the conflict of interest forms. As a reminder, it's important to our board members to fully disclose any potential connections or relationships that might influence their judgment of Community Development Advisory Board business. Please read the forms carefully, sign it, and leave it at your seat to be collected by staff at the end of this meeting. They're in here, is that right? Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. As part of the next agenda item, I'd like to invite Loella Smalls, the Director of Community Development and Revitalization, to introduce her staff, present information regarding Robert's rules and resources, provide department updates, and future dates relevant for this board. Good morning, Ms. Smalls.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
First, I want to take a second to welcome each of you and thank you for being here. There's an old saying that says, "To whom much is given, much is expected." And so I know you are all here serving in the service of your heart. And we want to thank you, my team and I, because we really make a difference in Charleston County. The services that you fund, the agreements that you make with different nonprofits you support, we provide them funding, and they're making a huge difference to our residents, particularly our low to moderate income residents. So I want to thank you for the work that you do, and that you continue to do every year. I do want to go over, well, let me start by introducing my staff before we do the Robert's rules. Let me just quickly introduce my staff. I will start at the front. You have Gail Carson. She is our Senior Program Manager. You have Nicole. She has been probably the main person emailing you over the last couple of days. Nicole is our Program Manager over Community Development and Community Services. Then we'll go to the back row. We've got Margaret. Margaret is our Community Engagement Specialist. Next to Margaret is LaToya. She is our second Program Manager, and she is the Program Manager over Housing. So Nicole does all of our community service programs, and then LaToya does all of our housing, emergency housing repair, building homes with the Home and Shelter Fund. Next to LaToya, we have Rebecca. Rebecca is our auditor, and as an auditor, she's also working with our wells and septic program. So she's responsible for all of the questions, or she can answer all of your questions that deal with the funding for wells and septic program. Next to Rebecca, we have Kristen. Kristen works with LaToya in the housing arena. Next to Kristen, you have Christina, and Christina also supports LaToya in the housing world. Next to Christina is Odessa. Odessa works with environmental reviews. HUD requires that we do environmental reviews on all projects, and she also works with compliance. In the very back, we have Mike. Mike is our finance director. That's an easy one. I don't need to give you much information on the finance director. And here we have Chris. He is our construction manager. Recently, we've added quite a few construction projects, and because most of us, we didn't know very much about construction, we decided that we needed to have someone that understood construction on a higher level than we did. And so we've got Chris. We hired him about a year ago. So that is part of my team. Probably looks as if I brought everybody here with me today, but I didn't. We left a few back at our building. So again, I wanted to introduce our staff, and I wanted to thank you. The agenda is before you, and I think everyone has an agenda in your packet. Your board packet is pretty full today. You should have the PowerPoint in there, the agenda, your consent form that you needed to, or you sign, your conflict of interest form should be in there. If you need to sign that, please sign it and get that one to Nicole. And then your program update is part of the PowerPoint that's in your packet. So I'm going to cover today Robert's Rules. Many of you on the board are new, or just joining the board. I think most of you are actually new, except for a couple of you. And so we decided, Carter and I, we talked about Robert's Rules, and we decided that this may be a good time to do a quick overview. And we're giving you 3 ways. People learn in different ways. That's what I've heard about schools. So we're giving you 3 ways. Today, I'm going to give you an overview, and it is a high level overview. There are about 7 or 8 slides, and I'm only going to hit a couple of points on the slides. In addition to that, each of you should have a book next to you. It's called the Robert's Rules of Order Made Simple and Easy. For those of you that enjoy reading at night, and it helps, thank you, and it helps you, fall asleep at night, or you want a lot of information, you've got this book. We also found a third way to provide information, and that's an online tutorial course. I think if I remember correctly, there are 10 sessions, so it's going to take you a little while. But if you're anything like me, I've served on different boards, and many times I just sit back and wait and hope somebody in the room knows the rules. I've always wanted to take an in-depth look at the Robert's Rules. This is going to give you this opportunity. We are going to pay for it. We've paid for all of the board members that are interested in taking the class. Our staff will also take the class if they're interested in taking the class. I think this is going to be beneficial. I think we all know Robert's Rules, but sometimes we need a reminder. So if you're interested in taking the course, Nicole will email everybody the information, the link. It's self-guided. I think if I remember correctly, there are 10 sessions. You can take them as you please. Yes?
Just 1 second. Do y'all have the books?
Our staff is bringing them. I
Okay.
apologize.
Okay.
Okay, sorry, they were supposed to be at your desk. We'll get them to you in a few minutes. Sorry about that. Thank you, Carter. So generally speaking, when we think about Robert's Rules, I like to think of Robert's Rules as the golden rules for running a meeting. There are certain things that you have to do in a meeting, but overall, I think of them as just being courteous and respecting each other. Robert's Rules gives us a guideline to follow, but at the end of the day, it's just the golden rules for having a meeting. It's being respectful. It's giving everybody a chance to speak. If you already had a chance and you spoke on a topic, allow other members on the board to have a chance to speak before you come back with your second comment. And then, of course, the motions are how we approve or vote. There are different types of motions. There are basically 6 motions, but I think if we all remember the 3 main motions, or the 3 basic motions. Your main motion, which introduces a new item. The second one that I think is the basic, most important, is if you need to end a motion. If a motion is on the table and you decide that you want to kill it, you can kill that motion, or you motion to table it. And then I think the third most important motion is to delay a vote. If you're discussing, you're debating, and you realize that we need more information, you can do a motion to postpone or delay the vote. Those are the 3 basic types of motions. In some meetings you may get into, or there may be a need when you need to do the other ones. There's a subsidiary, a privileged, and an incidental. So how do you do a motion? A motion is a member will raise his hand, notify to the chair that he wants to make a motion. Once that person makes that motion, of course it's seconded, we all know that. The chairman then restates the motion that was made, and at that point you're allowed to debate. Anything you want to talk about, any questions you have, any points you want to make, all of that's done during the debate. After the debate, once the chairman realizes that there aren't any more discussions, everyone's had a chance to speak, then the chairman will restate the motion and then you vote. And that's simply you can ask for the people that agree or say yes or the affirmative. And then after that, he will ask for those that are a negative vote. After you vote and he realizes, or the chairperson realizes who has won, then the chairperson will announce the vote, the winning vote. Either it won, and this is what you're going to do, or the vote did not pass. So those are the 6 steps. I think what's nice about this is there are certain things in this package you can tear out and stick in your notebooks that you take to every meeting, and you'll always have this right there in front of you. During the debate, remember we said that a motion is made, a motion is second, the chairman restates the motion, and then there's debate. The main thing to remember when you're debating is that the chairman will sort of try to go in order. So if someone raises their hand and signifies or notifies the chairperson that he wants to speak, the chairperson will try to go to that person next. I will admit, having been in that chair before, sometimes when you're looking on both sides of you, it's a little bit difficult to determine who raised their hand second or who notified you second. But in general, the chairman will go in order to allow each of you a chance to speak about or to discuss and debate the motion that's on hand. That's the main thing to remember. I think the second part of it is always just remember decorum and respecting each other during the debate. Minutes, please know that my staff will do the minutes. I won't go through all of the details here because they're going to make sure this happens and that they're completing the minutes accurately. The minutes will come back to the next meeting. We ask that you review the minutes because sometimes we make a mistake. We typically we take notes during the meeting. The meeting is also being filmed so that we can watch the meeting as we're writing the minutes, but sometimes misinterpretations. So when you receive the minutes prior to the meeting, if you can review them, because of course at the meeting, the next meeting, you will review the meeting and approve them. We do keep the minutes I never can say that word. We keep the meetings forever. Perpetuity. That's the word. That's a tongue twister of a word for me. But at any rate, we do keep the minutes forever once you've approved them. The most important thing to remember about the minutes is if you need to recuse yourself, please always remember to recuse yourself and complete the conflict of interest, because that will be noted in the minutes also. Now, everything that happens in a meeting will not be on the agenda. There's going to be a time when you want to request a point. And you want to request a point when there's a situation or is an issue that you want to talk about. And because it isn't on the agenda, you want to declare to the board or to the chairman that you have a point of order. That's one example. You have a point of information. That's the second example. You have a point of inquiry or a point of personal privilege. On the next page, you have a description of the different points, but the main ones to remember are the first 3. I think those are the most important ones. The first one is a point of order. If you need to bring attention when there's a breach of rules, so for example, if there's something going on during the meeting that isn't appropriate, that's when it's important that you make a point of order. The second one that you can make is a point of information. If you need to bring up additional information or an additional point, at that point you just say, Chairman, I'd like to make a point of information. And then I think the third one that's important is a point of inquiry. If you need to ask for more information or if you need to ask for clarification, you can request a point of, the books are here by the way, you can ask for a point of inquiry. The third one is an interesting one. It's a personal privilege. And that's really around physical comfort. If there's too much, if the temperature is too cold or too warm, you can make a point of personal privilege. If there's too much noise in the audience, you can make a point of personal privilege. There's several types of actions. I'm not going to go over these actions in detail, mainly because I want to make sure if you want to totally understand them, that you go through the book and read them. Also, if you're going to take the class, you'll get more information. But what I do want to say with the actions, of all of the pages, for me, this was the most important page to keep with you. So that you'll know the types of actions, but more importantly, you'll know when you can do them, you'll know if a vote is needed, you'll know if it can be amended, if it can be debated. So this page, I think, is the most important page of all of the pages in there, in your package, and this is the one you may want to keep with you when you're doing a meeting and you need to make an action and you want to know the types of actions and how to proceed with those actions. The agenda, my staff will work on creating the agenda. Before they send the agenda to you, we always sit down with Carter and or the board chair, this point is Carter. We sit with Carter and we go through the agenda to make sure we've covered all of the items he wants to cover. And if there's anything that we put on the agenda that he wants to remove, we work with Carter to update the agenda. Once Carter or the board chair has given us his approval, then we send the agenda and the package to you prior to the meeting for your review, so that you can review it also. Kind of sum this up, when you're talking about the Roberts rules and everything that we went over today, the main points is we need to always remember to follow the agenda. Everyone will always have an agenda, and you will receive the agenda prior to the meeting. Always remember to speak after you've been recognized by the chair. Sort of a nice wave, raise your hand, let him know that you want to speak, or if you need to make a motion, or if you want to vote, or not vote, but during the debate, just let him know that you need to speak. Always allow everybody an opportunity to speak before you speak a second time, and that's just going back to the golden rule, being fair, being respectful, allowing everyone to speak. And I think at the end of the day, just follow the golden rules. There's a book that they wrote once, Everything I Learned in Kindergarten. I don't know how many of you remember that. A couple of years ago, it was an extremely popular book. But I sort of feel like the Robert rules, outside of the main parts of the Robert rules, how to make a motion, a lot of it you learned in kindergarten. Just be respectful of each other. So are there any questions? I think as I was speaking, the books came in, so we will pass them out before you leave today. And I thank you, and I turn it over to Gail. Is that correct? Yeah, Gail?
That's perfect.
All right, Gail. So this is where we talk with you about our sub-recipients' progress. You talk about how they're managing the funds that you recommended to council. And we also do an update at the funding recommendation meeting, which is February. So hopefully by then there'll be more progress and more funds that are flowing into the community. So we manage both the City of North Charleston and county urban entitlement funds. The update reflects the county funds only. Starting with program year 21, there is one project, a housing project that is still underway. And actually, they completed their program year 22 house first. And that house has been completed, and they're underway with eligibility certification. And that's Palmetto Community Action Partnership. Community First Land Trust, they have 21 money, which has not yet been set up in IDIS. That is the HUD Integrated Data Information System. So although it was a 21 project, we have not set it up, so we have not yet triggered the 4-year commitment. This is an agency that's had some issues, some challenges creating projects. So once they have sold their 19 house, we will begin to execute contracts for funds that have been awarded. Town of Ondaw, program year 22, they were experiencing some difficulty because they prefer working with mobile homes, and low-valued mobile homes in flood zones do trigger some substantial improvement requirements. We have worked with building services to ease some of those restrictions, so we anticipate the town being able to move forward with their 22 funds, either through working on mobile homes with some restrictions that have been eased, or working on homes that are stick houses. Community First Land Trust, once again, this is an agency that's experienced some difficulties getting their projects underway. We will be holding this 22 money until we see some movement with their final program year 19 house. They receive both CHODO and home funds. Same applies with the home funds. Once we see that final program year 19 house sold, we'll begin to work on some projects. They have submitted several environmental reviews, which does make it easier to begin to develop contracts with them. Yes, Michael?
What's the delay? I mean, construction prices from 21 are significantly higher. I mean, are those funds even realistic in getting their projects completed in today's environment?
The delay in us executing the contract is that their 19 house was a high-risk house, and we want to see that they can manage the funds in 19 before we commit additional funds. And also, we want to reevaluate their funding sources.
So in the packet yesterday that we got, it had on here program year 2019, but then today it says program year 2021. So is there a reason why 2019 is not on here anymore?
19 belonged to North Charleston. That's a
Okay.
North Charleston house.
But the issues started with Community First Land Trust in 2019, is that right?
It was a 2019 funded project,
Okay,
yes.
okay,
So they did sell their 2019 Charleston County house that was located on Hugo. So their 2019 North Charleston house is Arbutus. That should be completed by the end of this month, sold by November 15th, or risk some sanctions by HUD. But that's a North Charleston project.
okay.
Is there additional funding elsewhere beside Charleston County Advisory Board that they are dealing with?
This developer has also been awarded ARPA funds, and we can execute the contracts using both HUD and ARPA. But once again, we are waiting to be sure that we can see an outcome from a project that is now 5 years old.
Yeah.
So we're hopeful, we're optimistic. It's a beautiful house. If you recall, it's a house that had to be demolished because the contractor had not abided by some construction standards. So through no fault of their own, they had some legal issues that they've been battling for the last 3 years. Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions? Palmetto Community Action Partnership. So they completed their program year 22 house before their program year 21 house. Both houses are on the same lot. '23 Homeworks, they have an extension through Thursday, and we do anticipate they will complete all the houses. Town of Ondar, they have not yet used their program year 23 funds. Once again, they prefer working on mobile homes, which does trigger some concerns, but we think we found a workaround. And they have 3 environmental reviews they're going to be submitting to us to use their program year 23 funds. SCASIT, which is South Carolina Association for Community.
I'm not trying to, but this is kind of the point of the meeting. It's 3 projects, or is it waiting 3 environmental reviews on the town of Hondo?
We're waiting for them to submit 3 environmental reviews. They've told us they've identified 3 stick houses that they want to repair, and they're preparing the ERs. So
Okay,
they
so
have to
they're not mobile homes.
I'm sorry?
They're not mobile homes.
They're not. no.
Okay.
No. So just so you know, the ERs have to be completed before we will approve construction or rehab to go forward. And they have to scope the home and make sure that it does pass the ER before they begin to work or expend any of our funds.
With the Iron Dog project, by it being in the flood zone, are these homes being elevated above flood level?
What we've worked out with building services is that they would be exempt from some of the floodplain requirements. So there have been 3 readings, and we just want to make sure that the 3 ordinance readings do reflect our ability to assist homeowners in flood zones, in mobile homes with low-value houses. So there have been 3 ordinance readings. We want to make sure that everything lines up completely. But it was supposed to relax some of those requirements for low-value homes in flood zones. Yes.
Forgive me, just so I can understand it in the briefest way. When you say environmental reviews, does that mean water and sewer or what?
There are about 12 areas that we have to make sure that the project doesn't violate: noise calculation, artifacts, wildlife. There are different things we have to make sure that we're adhering to, we're not violating, before we can say, let's move on with the repair. So we do have someone here who works on environmental reviews, but there are about 12 different steps associated with getting clearance before we can authorize repair work to proceed.
So that I understand, does that include water and sewer?
Our water and
Environmental review, does that include water and sewer?
Yes, our sewer projects have to go through an ER clearance, yes.
Thank you.
Am I answering the question? I don't.
Are these all septic are most of these septic projects?
They're repair projects for Homeworks, Town of Onondaga, but we do have an in-house well and septic program. And those projects have to go through environmental review.
For like perk tests and stuff like that, is that?
No. It's, they have to go before National Archives, noise calculation. What else?
Airport for noises, fish and wildlife.
I beg your pardon, I'm hard of hearing.
Laura?
Please stand. This is Odessa. She works in our regulatory area, so she's one of the staff who actually processes our environmental review clearance reports.
When we check for our environmental reviews, we checked with DHEC, Fish and Wildlife, pollutants, radon. We check the water bodies. We check for the Catawba Indian tribe. There's about, wish I brought my list. But it's a thorough check. Normally, when we're finished, we have about 80 to 150 pages of documents of the things that we have to check. We also check for contaminants, environmental spilling and tank spills. It's pretty comprehensive.
It's a HUD checklist, right? Yeah, okay.
I think the list that you were asking about, we check according to the HUD list that they've given us. If depending on the type of work and permits that may be required, they may check different things.
Right.
When you're asking about the radon or when we're looking at wells and septics, that goes through DHEC, and that's a separate list of requirements that we have to go through. But that isn't part of the HUD check. That's part of getting a permit to install a well or septic.
Yeah. Who funds these
Matthews.
If I could just add some clarity, I think a lot of you are asking about the requirements for what we as the towns know as far as connecting to our municipalities, and what they're talking about is the impact on the environment around us. So kind of two different things, like whether it perks, that's more advantageous for the homeowner and the municipality to know as far as the impact on the sewer system, things like that. What they're talking about is direct impact to the surrounding environment and eco-infrastructure.
Who pays for all of that? I'm just curious. Does it come out of the funds that are awarded, or does the board? Who funds those environmental studies?
So if it's CDBG, our staff work with our nonprofits. If it's home, then our nonprofit has to pay for it. And they will usually hire a consultant because the home
ER are much more intense and much more involved.
Okay.
So it takes about 30 days, 45 days for us to get back ER clearance. For a home project, it takes much longer. So it's absorbed internally through our HUD funds. Okay. East Cooper Community Outreach, this is a program that provides assistance to uninsured and underinsured. They still have funds on the table. They're having some difficulty managing eligibility because they are using the USDA definition of household versus HUD, and they're asking us to really help them navigate some challenges they're having to use both the USDA definition of household versus HUD. USDA says that a person is their own household. HUD looks at household as being everyone in the home having to submit income. So we're trying to find a way to help them so they can manage and keep their funds because it's such a valuable program. Low County Youth Services, they experienced some difficulty, but I believe it's been worked out, and they've requested an extension to use their funds. And this is a mentoring program for young men.
When it says board involvement SALT, what does that mean?
I think right on their end, maybe.
When it says board involvement SALT, are you talking about our involvement?
No, their board.
Oh,
We were having some difficulty getting them to respond, so we let the board know they couldn't use the funds, that deobligating was an option, and they realized they wanted to use the funds. Community First Land Trust, once again, this is a project that is on hold until we see movement with their 19 money. It was a small amount of money, but still it was an award in program year 23. Metanoia, so I believe that they submitted the documents for underwriting this month, and we can move forward with writing their contract. Pastors, this project has been stalled, it's been delayed because of some challenges with some title requirements and financing. So we're hoping that this developer can work through these title issues and retain his financing so he can move forward with developing houses in Holly Grove. So Holly Grove has been a project that we've been involved with for quite some time. We've developed rental houses, there are new homes for sale, and so this would be, I guess, house number 3 and 4. We've already sold 2 houses in Holly Grove. Tri-County Weatherization, they have, let's see, 1 outcome remaining. Actually, they completed their house, yes. So we're waiting for the lead-based paint clearance test to come back. And we did inspect that house, I guess, about a month ago. Yeah. So they've actually met their county outcome. Program year 24. So these funds were recommended in February, went to County Council for approval in April. We received our notice of award in June, but the funds were not released by HUD until September 12th. So it's been a wait, but we now have contracts that our nonprofits have signed, and they're in the pipeline for approval on the county level. So these are the projects that you recommended for funding in February. As you can see, Charleston Habitat, which is a repair program, Homeworks, which is a repair program, Operation Home, and Town of Onda are all home repair programs. And with the Town of Onda, we're not looking to execute this contract until we see movement with their 22 and 23 money. SCASID, which is a business entrepreneurial mentoring program, Increasing Hope, similar to SCASID, they help nonprofits, fledgling nonprofits develop their capacity. Carolina Youth is a summer experience. A Freedom School, character building, educational tutoring program. Charleston Area Senior Citizens, they provide Meals on Wheels, as well as in-home monitoring for seniors, and they make referrals for assistance to help seniors maintain their independence in their home. Pro bono, you know, is a legal advocacy service. Additional program for Program Year 24 funding, the Urban League, they advocate for fair housing, and they help with landlord-tenant mediation. Cornerstone of Hope, it's a STEAM enrichment program for children and youth K through 12. Dean Norton is a program that helps to respond to child abuse issues and prevent further abuse and neglect in the home. East Cooper Outreach, and once again, we're working with them to look at how they can keep their funds by finding a way for them to use the USDA definition of household and have it try to mirror as much as possible the HUD eligibility requirements for household, because it's such a valuable service, so we would not want them to deobligate those funds.
With the, Norton,
Yes.
they work in conjunction with the Department of Social Service as well?
They work with, I believe, medical providers, so it's a very holistic approach. They have psychiatric behavioral health services, Department of Human Services, educational services, so it's all of those things are combined when they evaluate the needs of the children.
Okay.
Humanities, they provide rental assistance and assistance for citizens who are experiencing utility shutoff. Navigation Center, they're providing some wraparound services for people experiencing homelessness or housing insecurity. And finally, Vision to Learn, they're providing free exams and glasses for youth. Metanoia, this is another new construction project, has also received ARPA funds, so we're pretty certain that this is going to move forward quickly because we're actually executing now their U.S. Treasury ARPA agreement. And finally, Tri-County Weatherization. We don't have agreements yet for home projects because of the ER requirements, the exception being Metanoia. We can actually start an agreement because they have ARPA funds. But typically our home programs will not have agreements executed until we receive notification of ER clearance. So that's it for our Program Year 24 projects. And once again, February, we provide you with another update of where they are with their expenses and their outcomes. We also have an in-house well and septic program. And for 21, we have expended all those funds, Program Year 21. Program Year 22 and 23, we have a vendor identified, and Program Year 24 funds have not yet been committed. And those funds come off the top because council does have a priority, a desire for citizens to receive clean water and sanitary waste disposal systems. So those funds come off the top of our allocation. Before we go into the next update by Nicole, and I do thank you, Gail, for that work. She and her staff, they work really hard at keeping up with the nonprofits, making sure they stay on track. As you were listening, there were several of the nonprofits that have items that are pending, items that several years back that they haven't spent the funds. HUD requires that we spend, is it 1.5%, Mike? We have to spend, I think it's about 50% before May 1st. And so we will be working with staff to ensure that that happens. When they send us our contracts in September, it pushes everything back a little and makes it tougher to meet that due date. But I just wanted to assure you that staff will continue working with the nonprofits to make sure they're staying on track and spending the dollars by the due dates. So there were several slides that Nicole just reminded me that I omitted. So when you met in February to make your funding recommendations, we use a projection because we had not yet received our actual allocation. So we were very conservative in our projections because HUD was implying that there might be some furloughs and some reductions in our allocation. So that first column is what the projection was and what the awards would have been. The second column reflects our actual allocation. We used your approved contingency plan to award the funds. So the contingency plan should have been in your meeting minutes that you approved. And so that's how we were able to award funds that were difference between the projections and the allocations. And that's the CDBG projection versus allocations. And of course, there's always the public service cap of 15%. And those are the home projected allocations versus actuals. And we also use your contingency plan to award anything that exceeded the projections. There's ESG, same rationale was used. Contingency plan for awarding the difference between projections and actuals. So Nicole's going to cover our upcoming program year 25 RFA process.
Good morning, everybody. Many of you are familiar with this. A few of you are new to the board. Wanted to just do like a very quick review. You're going to get a more in-depth with this around when we're talking about the funding recommendation, so you can really break down into like what the scoring is going to look like that you're being recommended for, that's going to come from our scoring committee to you all for your final funding recommendations. This is generally the timeline though for the urban entitlement process. First, we open the RFA. That's going to open this year. We're shooting for approximately November 25th. That's going to be dependent on whether or not the software that we've been using for the last 2 years, we're able to get it fully online and functional. We are very confident that that's going to be fine because we're going to be able to use the data that was already created previously and just kind of adapt it a little bit, just so after a hot wash of kind of what didn't work last year with that software, we're able to make that process a lot easier for our applicants. So during that time, while the RFA is open, staff will be going to different municipalities that will allow us to attend their town hall meetings. Don't worry, I'm going to have an ask for you about that later. But we will be looking to attend those town hall meetings and doing a very brief high-level review of kind of the RFA, what urban entitlement is, how it can benefit the community, and kind of a call for applications for any nonprofits that might benefit from this funding, especially those that might not have participated in this process before. That's why while we're doing this, we're also going to have different trainings available. There'll be 2 in-person workshops. We're also going to have, again, like last year, a virtual series that will be available so that applicants will be able to walk through section by section and have a video that they can stop and pause and use. We found and got a lot of good feedback on that last year, that it really did help applicants through the process. And it also just helped staff in general, because during this time, we're not able to answer any questions outside of technical assistance. So that really kind of facilitated that knowledge for them. And really some applications that from smaller organizations came forward. It was their first time really applying for some federal dollars, but they were able to get their feet wet. And quite frankly, after the application even closed, we have had organizations still watch those videos just because Neighborly is being used now so broadly across our the low country, quite frankly. So the application will open November 25th, and we're going to close the application somewhere around the first week of January. We're looking at January 6th as being the pending date. That just, again, will depend on the official date of open. We'll start the scoring process. That will happen somewhere in January till early February. During that process, we pull together a staff-based committee. It'll be in staff from North Charleston as well as Charleston County. As you guys know, we do manage North Charleston's funds. And that, I'll talk more about what goes into scoring as we get to the funding recommendation meeting. I don't want to bog you down with a lot of information, but we do an in-depth score of really getting to the technical nuts and bolts of what they're asking before it comes to you all. Then there is the funding recommendation. Prior to, there is going to be the meeting where organizations will get to come and they'll make their pitch to you. They'll have 3 minutes to discuss what they are proposing, what they'd like to see funded. That is going to occur for this board on January 29th, so the end of January. During which time, that will be during all these meetings when we have the public kind of engage with the board and provide additional information to support their applications. Once the funding recommendation happens on February 26th by this board, we will take the allocations that have been given to council by April of 2025. Once council approves those, we'll look towards making contracts by September of that year, and then the community starts to benefit because those organizations start issuing their requests for disbursements. So then those funds start, quite frankly, hitting the streets. They start making it where they need to go. Again, that is dependent on the organization's efficiency in getting those dollars out, but ideally that's how the process works, and then we work our way back to this time next year when we're starting this all over again. So, in a nutshell, kind of how the timeline works. Like I said, we are going to be using Neighborly again. This is the second year we'll be using this portal, walkthrough videos, technical assistance. What we found is that it's not a perfect software, it's not a perfect application portal. However, it does provide us the opportunity to keep everything organized. It gives us points to applicants to say, you need to go to this section, look at this specific question A5 or what have you, and it helps us all kind of get on the same page so we really can get, the answers that they're looking for, but we're also very careful of only being the technical assistance there. Scoring also is going to be recorded in Neighborly like it was previously, and that again gives us a chance to keep all of our records tightly in the same place. So application scores, like I said, are determined by a scoring committee. This will include staff from Charleston County as well as the city of North Charleston. These scores will be presented to you at your funding recommendation meeting, and those are for you to consider in your overall decision of allocation. Yes?
I had a quick question about Neighborly.
Yep.
If the second year, does it store their previous applications?
Yes.
If they're repeat, so they can build upon that or update it?
They can access their previous application, but it's closed. So they can reference that information, but they will have to generate a new application as it is a new year. And that also just, keeps things a little bit more tidy. So that way we're not having documents that might be the wrong date or what have you, but they do still have access to it. As long as they have their logins, they can still access any applications. And many of the organizations that we fund through Urban Entitlement have also used Neighborly at this point to apply for different ARPA funding programs, and they still have access to all of those as well. So the scores will be considered by this board. We'll take those, like I said, to council. And then again, we're just going to break down that process closer to the date, so that way all of this information can just happen right when you're making those decisions. Overall, this is what we're looking at in terms of dates. Like I said, that we are contingent on Neighborly going live on November 25th. We have a meeting with Neighborly here today, actually, just to make sure we're on track for that to happen. But during that time between November and January, when it closes, we'll have 2 in-person workshops. December 3rd, we'll be at North Charleston at 10 a.m. We'll do an in-person walk through the application, answer any technical assistance questions. And then Thursday of that same week, December 5th, we'll be in this chamber. We'll have this available, exact same training, same format for anyone who attends. Both of those provide a lot of our nonprofits with access to staff, because sometimes they can bring in a document that they're not sure of or ask some more specific questions. If there is a question outside of technical assistance, it does get recorded, and then those will be included in an addendum that will be released. I don't know that we have that specific date yet, because that is dependent, again, on if we're able to go live, but that will be issued to every single organization that has an open application. So if organization A comes forward and asks a question that exceeds the bounds of technical assistance, their question and answer are recorded in the addendum, and then that is widely publicized to every organization that's applied in the spirit of fairness and competitiveness. So application presentations, like I said, those will happen January 29th. That will be in front of all of you to take into consideration. And then by February 26th of next year, you guys will be recommending funding again for the advisory board, your commitment to HUD funding, and then we will work our way from there back through the cycle. So here's my ask. You ready? Town hall meetings. So we were able to get out to James Island, Hollywood, Ravenel, Lincolnville, Ondon, Mount Pleasant last year. We are asking that this year we're going to follow through with reaching out to clerks, trying to find the appropriate time to get on those municipal meetings. It would be really beneficial if we could have engagement of the board in your respective municipality. So when we are going to that town hall meeting, if you wouldn't mind providing some kind of additional language, support, discussion, just to really like get the point home that there's a representative from the municipality that helps make these funding recommendations, so that we can just drive further engagement from our communities. We have a lot of new nonprofits that we've seen. I work a lot with like the grassroots nonprofits. I'm seeing a lot of smaller ones come up. I think that having the board that's already representative of the municipality engage in those meetings could go even a little step farther. So all of you will be informed when I'm able to speak to your clerks about getting on your calendars in your respective municipalities. And those of you who don't represent necessarily a municipality, if you would be so inclined to, maybe go to the one where you perhaps live or that you have fondness for, you are more than welcome to come on with us. We're gonna have about 2 staff members attend, as many as we can. The reason we don't go out to other municipalities is quite frankly, they don't answer, or they don't have time for us on their schedule, or their meeting got canceled and we weren't able to accommodate that within the time. So barring any of those things, we would love to see more of our board members engage in this process. And it would, I think, really just help overall. So that's my ask. You'll see emails about it, just prefacing that now.
So where are you looking to go this year?
Every municipality that's represented by the board.
Okay.
So that's what we always do. We reach out to, from Ondaw to James Island, Mount Pleasant, even Isle of Palm, Sullivan's Island. We try to get out to everywhere. And then what ends up happening is, because it is towards the end of the year, we're walking into November, a lot of meetings it's slimmer months for councils to get together or for town hall meetings to happen. But in the event that we are able to get 10-15 minutes at one of those meetings, we definitely do attend. So we're not afraid to travel.
And when are you hoping to start the meetings?
So requests for those meeting dates are going to go out following this meeting, probably within the next week or two, just to find out if we can get on the November calendar. We're trying to stay off of people's calendars in December just because that is when we saw the most cancellations of meetings. So maybe the first week or two of December, but closer to the holidays, we know that it just doesn't really work out. And we want to go to meetings where we know there's going to be engagement of the public as well. So, and not the Christmas meetings.
And also, because there might be nonprofits in the towns, we want to make sure nonprofit knows about the RFA before it closes. So it's really important that we're also talking with the nonprofits who have not yet applied, who don't know about this funding opportunity.
And with that, I appreciate your time, and I will give this meeting back over to our board chair.
Does anyone have any questions or comments or?
I just have one quick question. You said November. Are you speaking about 3 or 4 days from now, or are you talking about a year from now?
No, I'm talking about like this month coming.
Yeah, okay.
Whenever I can.
Yeah.
Or December.
Or December.
Friday.
Or December.
Friday is November 1st.
Just wanted to check that.
We realize that it is, and this is always what happens with the urban entitlement, is that when we get our funding and then we start this process, it is always at the end of the year, which is holiday season. We don't expect to make it out to every municipality because we know that we probably won't get that level of engagement, but we would like to go to as many as possible.
If I may add, Mr. Visser, the other important part, and earlier I thanked you for being a part of the board, it's an opportunity also for you to notify nonprofits that you know of, that because if they didn't attend a town hall meeting, and many nonprofits may not attend the meeting, you have that opportunity also, if there's one you want to check in with, to make sure they know about this opportunity to apply. Also, keep in mind that when we do send out the information, we send it to all of the nonprofits in Charleston County that we are aware of. So if they're not getting the information at a town hall meeting, they will also receive an email from staff that says, these are the dates and this is where you need to go to apply. So I think by taking both directions, we're getting as many nonprofits as possible. But it's definitely an opportunity for you to assist us if you know of nonprofits, particularly if you know of a nonprofit that we haven't funded, or you notice they weren't on the list and you want to make sure they know. Please reach out to them. So I think we're getting all nonprofits this way.
Any other questions or comments, or Michael, you have one?
Yeah, Carter, I'd like to thank the staff. I think at the last meeting, there were some discussions about how the funding had been applied in previous years, and an organization kept coming back, and do we want to continue that funding? This was very clear. Thank you.
Anyone
You're
else?
welcome.
All righty. I'm to remind you of your conflict of interest forms again. And if there is no further business, this meeting of the Charleston County Community Development Board stands adjourned. This board will hold its next meeting on Wednesday, January 29th, 2025 at 9:30 a.m. in council chambers. Thank you all so much for being here.